am a founder at a learning institute called Mohan Ashram, which I started in 2018. And it's taken on the form of being a center for integrated health and well-being. So my formal yoga education started at Yoga Vidya Dham in Nashik. And honestly, at that point, I had no interest in, or I hadn't really thought that I would be where I am today. What I wanted to do was really largely work on my own mental health, my own wellness. And you know how everyone's always like, yoga's the answer, go check it out. So I did. I had time and I decided to do that. And then since then, I've been learning under varied tutelages. Right now, I'm learning with Raghu Anantanarayanji from Ritambara Ashram, the A.G. Mohan and family and Swasthya Yoga. Then there's Kaivalya Dham, there's the Iyengar tradition. So I've really been immersing myself in the different systems and going beyond just the asana or the physical aspect of it. And I really wish to share the knowledge and what this system has brought to me with everyone who would like to listen and have that beauty and wonder in life that I received from my learning so far. But I studied law and I did my master's in law, I did my master's in criminal justice. But I am now a founder at Mohan Ashram, which is a learning center. I think a lot of why I am here is because of this, and in the future also. So recently I was at a very interesting conference at Kaivalya Dham for yoga and mental wellness. And the keynote speaker there was a Karnataka High Court judge, and he mentioned how practices from yoga, from relaxation, can be used in systems like mediation, can be used in family court matters too. And there's so much evidence already of how yoga practices in prisons has brought down recidivism rates and so on. So I am reluctant to say that I've given it up, because I do see myself being connected to it in some way or another in the future, or bringing about that connection in some way or another in the future. But yeah, it has helped me stay in touch with the more practical, logical thinking, critical thinking aspects, and bring it to the more practical aspects of Mohan Ashram. So I cannot say that I'm completely removed from it, but I'm not practicing per se, or I do enjoy writing still. So I try to bring in that note into my yoga thinking also. When I think about that, I feel like I'll spend a whole day in listing out all the different people that have impacted my life. Right from really every single person in my family, close and extended, to my secondary school principal, Father Sayu, my vocal music teacher, Sita Bhabi. There's so many family friends, close and far. So I feel like even my nephews today, they're 2 and 4-year-old, growing up, maybe not, but today I feel like I'm still undergoing these processes where I'm imbibing new qualities and new ideas from people that I'm interacting with. But one that definitely stands out for me is my maternal grandmother. She really has been a model for selfless action. She has been a model for what empathy can look like, what kindness can look like, and what it is to create a space for other people to grow and flourish in, without really thinking about what you are taking away from that space. So for me, she really does stand out, especially because on the other side of my family, I have a very different kind of model and structures. Everyone in my family is a doctor, and they're in some or other kind of service um, towards society, and a lot of achievement based thought processes also, which is important. Um, but for my maternal grandmother's side, I received a very, very different understanding of life, which I think I value greatly. So this has been a very gradual, organic process, and it wasn't a jump from one to the other. I studied in the Netherlands, and I came back, and I worked with this organization called Prajna Trust in Chennai, and I was doing a fellowship studying intimate partner violence and perceptions of intimate partner violence among young populations. And all through my research, I kept finding these staggering numbers, and always already I had burning questions about why there is so much inequality and why our structures are the way they are. And when you start to see them in a context of the entire world, you see that across socioeconomic boundaries this exists, and we think there are some areas which have really progressed, but I kept finding out that, there's, as a society, as a community, as individuals, we seem to be taking one step forward and two steps back in some way or another, and just dressing up old ideas in new ways without really having any real evolution of thought, or any real evolution of our words and actions that we are bringing into this world. And sort of just trying to find out why that is, I moved into the yoga space, and from there I began to understand better what does health mean, what it means to be well, what it means to be happy, what it means to be content. And I began to view all of these structures in very different lights. So the key here was my own health and my own well-being and my own deteriorating mental health, especially in the adolescent and young adult years, and my quest to change that actively, to take responsibility for it and make sure that I change that. I was always heavily into sports, and Nanded being a small town, especially in the 90s, there was a whole thing about interacting with the opposite gender and speaking your mind. And a lot of the times I got into trouble for asking why this was, and why my friends weren't coming out to play, or why my neighbor's daughter was not going to study beyond the 12th standard. And a lot of the times the social structures in place prevented me from asking these questions. But I think how I found my way through it was to pick my battles a lot of the times. I didn't always just go about asking whatever I wanted or saying whatever I wanted, but trying to cultivate a more delicate way of broaching the subjects with, say, the hospital staff, with my parents, the daughters of the hospital staff. It was taken for granted a lot of the times that after she would turn 16, studies would be done, and then till 18 they'd be looking for someone for her to marry, and that was it. That was her life. So I, in my own way, I used to try and talk to them, talk to the mother, of course, and ask them why this was, and if they were doing the same thing with the son. And I can't say I might have changed many outcomes, but definitely one or two that stick, that allowed the girl to study or let her do what she wanted, and changed a few things here and there. But in so this was one of the ways I challenged, and nothing to do with gender, but in standard 11, the whole idea of science karo, there will be more options open, and it made sense to whoever was saying it back then, and I can see why. So I opted for science in my 11th and 12th, and I did bio for 1 year, and then one fine day I just turned up at home and I said I've dropped bio, so there's no more of that, and that was it. So then nobody could really do anything after that or say anything, but there was never any overt pressure of you must do this or the other. I've always had a good amount of support and a lot of leeway in taking decisions in my life. Unfortunately, our understanding in India today of yoga is coming from what the West is projecting to us. We understand yoga as something to be done. For 1 hour in my day, I'm going to roll out my mat and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to move my body in a certain way, or I'm going to do this or that breathing practice and so on. But that is just a part of yoga. That is a more tangible part which we can see, which we can hear, which we can take in from our senses. But there is a whole lot which requires work off of that which requires work um, for the other 23 hours that we are not on it. And when we practice this, yoga is mental health. So this idea that yoga for mental health or yoga for any other ailment or illness, let's say, for PCOS or PCOD, I feel that this is a very misplaced and a very fragmented understanding of such a beautiful, in-depth system that helps us understand the human as a whole, what we are, what are the processes that are happening within us at different layers, physical, mental, moving away from our traditional understanding of what these systems are and how they have been woven into the fabric of our life before, but now we are actively moving away from it, just sort of mimicking what we are consuming from these capsule-like modules online, or these ideas of these, I don't know how to put it, these Instagrammable ideas of wellness, if that doesn't sound too harsh. Just building awareness, right? Just understanding how I am spending my day is important. It's not how much can you say that you remember from yesterday, if you were to think of it. You'll remember it in certain chunks, you'll remember it in certain blocks of time, but how you are actually interacting with your external environment and what is happening within your internal environment, we are really not aware of it. And one of the things, okay, so when we think about thoughts, nowadays you can go into some let's say an app, for example, and there is this idea that, okay, now sit in one place and quieten your mind or quieten your thoughts. And I don't think that is really possible. Thoughts are going to come. That is a function of your internal environment, of your entire form. What you can do is observe it. What you can do is be aware of what those thoughts are, what the quality of your thoughts are, whether they are in a continuous stream or not. How are you bringing them into words and actions? Are those three things aligned? Are your thoughts, words, and actions aligned? So there's so many different aspects that we've compartmentalized: physical health, mental health, we've compartmentalized social health, economic health, but personally, I feel they're all interconnected. Success, for example, right? Happiness is not going to be caused by success. I feel it's the other way around. I don't think you can really compartmentalize the human in a way that we have today. I teach some aspects of Bahiranga Yoga. I take asana practices, I take some level of pranayam practices, and I try to bring in the idea of awareness and that philosophical underpinnings, but nowhere near a yogacharya. Months ago, even though you didn't take this route, you're finally ending up in the same location. So it's kind of going towards that, because I'm now studying to be a therapist also, with yoga in the Krishnamacharya tradition. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then eventually, the joining the family business, so to say. They've been very supportive all through. I think they've generally trusted my decisions, and when even when they haven't, they've shown support. So I really do appreciate that privilege that I have, and the many others that I've always had. I have really nothing particularly other than the asana practice, and then there's jalaneti and the cleansing practices that the system offer. Also some nightly hygiene, how I'm preparing for the next day, whether I've paid attention to how I've spent my day. So for example, just as I turn out for the night, I spend time going over the day and recognizing in what way I have viewed it. And I think that is a very important self-care routine, because if one thing goes wrong in the day, usually we are quite quick to say, oh, I've had a rough day or I've had a tough day. But I make sure that I view it as that one thing, and then I'm able to view the rest of the day as it was, rather than letting, say, one setback overshadow everything else. So that is an important part of how I close off my day every day. And good sleep hygiene is important. So I make sure that I'm not eating too soon before bed. I keep at least a few hours before bed, and the usual no gadgets and so on. Make sure that I sleep early, wake up early. And that is my self-care routine. Awareness, I think I try to look at my consumption patterns, not only in the things that are material, but also my thought processes. I try not to be too hard on myself in terms of going towards a perfect zero waste life or anything to that extent. But I am very aware of my consumption patterns and actively trying to make sure that I'm reducing my impact that is exploitative in any way. And I also try to share this thought with everybody. So my husband and I are now moving in towards the farming sector. We've taken on a piece of land, and now we're cultivating it in a regenerative manner. So I think that itself is going to make a lot of difference in the way that I live off of the farm, because I know what all is going into bringing that apple or chiku or whatever to my table. So being mindful of those things and being aware of those things, I feel has helped me reduce my footprint. Take it easy. I think I spent a lot of my time being very serious in life and not very sincere. And I think there was a lot of confusion because of it, which led to my deteriorating health. And I, like many people, I did villainize discipline, and I villainized failure, and I villainized so many things. I was not open to evolution of thought. So I'd just say to my younger self to take it easy. Don't be so serious in life, and be kind to first yourself, and then see how you show up in the world. Be mindful of that as well. Whenever I can, I try to hold free sessions on a more practical level, right? So throughout the lockdown, I had chanting sessions that were ongoing throughout the week, and I had these relaxation yoga nidra based sessions that I was holding again throughout the week for free. And then I was holding sessions for medical professionals when the pandemic, all of this I was making sure that I was not charging. But I think on a slightly different layer, I feel that it's important that I am actively healing myself in different ways, and in that perhaps healing my generations past and future, and in doing so paying it forward by bringing a judgment-free and empathetic space for whoever I can interact with. I think I personally think a lot of that is missing from the interactions that we have. I'm not saying I'm successful all the time when I'm doing that, of course, but I'm paying it forward, I think, by trying and encouraging anyone who would listen to try it themselves.